Welcome back to the Old City, Leviathan. This is the start of Chapter 4, and the name of this chapter was Ziz. I didn't know what that was, but I knew it must be something. So I looked it up online, and it turns out Ziz is a sort of griffin-like, a massive griffin-like creature from mythology. Whether the reason this is called Ziz will become clear later on, I'm not sure. But I'm going to keep it in mind. Okay, so Jonah has returned to his place of comfort. Let's see if we can break out of that. Alright, so it looks like nothing in here has really changed. That's the same piece of poetry that was there before. Same pictures. Same text, still says home. And there's still strange symbols like alpha, omega, delta, those sorts of symbols on a couple of these blocks, which is weird. Alright. Ooh. I guess the fantasy didn't last long. Oh my god, this place is gorgeous. Place is downright gorgeous. So this is leading me to the subway access, right? Is that a hand? Is the body it is perhaps connected to alive? Or, I mean, is that part of a statue? Or is it another one of his visions? Another one of those strange, massive things that he sees in the distance, like those huge insects or whatever they were. There's a foot. Is Ziz ever portrayed as, like, a humanoid? I don't think griffins are in any way humanoid. Also, there's floating things in the sky. So, yeah. This world is definitely part fantasy at the moment. I'm pretty sure the fall didn't make it so stuff can float in the air. This place really is gorgeous, though. Maybe I can see its head. That's definitely not a human head. Oh, wait a minute, that's the head of a minotaur, isn't it? I think that's a minotauric head. I don't even think minotauric is a word, but it sounds cool and it should be a word. It's hard to tell. Well, I'm expecting it to get up at any moment. Yeah, that seems like a minotaur. It doesn't appear to be moving at all. No signs of life, no breathing, no twitching. Oh. That's definitely alive, and that looks like Ziz. That looks like a griffin-like creature. Is Jonah perhaps fantasizing the subway system as like a gigantic griffin that I'm going to ride to my destination? It's possible. Okay, so this is probably where I'm supposed to go. So let's go everywhere else first. Birdies! This place seems very, very small.
These dreams act as mirrors. Like passive portraits of the complexities of the human mind, they paint self, just as ideas paint the universe. Dreams truly are the most honest form of introspection, even if I can only use them as an escape.
Wait, he just referred to them as, like, mirrors. And I'm supposed to be Jonah, right? But isn't it Solomon who referred to the dream world as the land of the mirrors? Where exactly did he refer to that? To them as that? There's actually a bunch of times, but let's see. I think it was in the last one, and probably in the first one too. Dream. He's talking about a dream. Dreams, 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 dream. Where'd you say it? I know he said the land of the mirrors or something. Is that a general term? Because if it's specific to him, then perhaps I am Solomon. I keep saying Solomon, I guess it's probably more like Solomon. Rather than Solomon. I'm not sure where he said it. But yeah, Solomon definitely referred to it as something like the land of the mirrors. Might mean nothing at all. Or it might be very important. Perhaps the dream was never meant to be realized. Perhaps the dream itself is an agent of progress. Perhaps contentment is nothing but stagnation. But it sounds like stuff Solomon would say. Is it because I'm reading his notes and it's bleeding out into my mind, or am I Solomon? Okay, I guess we have to go to Ziz, because I don't see anywhere else to go. I hope that doesn't end the chapter, because there must be a note for this section. One of Solomon's notes, because there's one for every section. I didn't miss anything, right? There's no stairway that I missed? No? Let's go meet the bird.
Of course, if this mirror is to be trusted, then I'm just as vile as the others. The contrast between my reality and this one tells me that I do not belong here. The only thing I have that they do not is a fondness for this new world.
Looks like it's sleeping. I hope it won't be angry with me for waking it up. Hello. Do I just walk off the edge? Ooh, look at the lighting from up there. Wonderful and red and warm. And there's an arrow. What the hell is that arrow? Are you telling me to look up there? I have no idea. I'm just gonna walk off the edge, I guess. Or keep looking up. Don't see anything. Okay. Here we go. It's not gonna move me to the next chapter, is it? Because if it does, then I missed something huge. No. I must be missing something, right? Hold on a second. I mean, there's one note per chapter, right? Well, not necessarily. I mean, so far there has been. Technically, this is just Solomon's note number 3. Maybe it's not necessarily for the chapter, but I'm pretty sure it is. Could I even go back to the last chapter if I wanted to? That's the thing. Like, I don't... Is there even a system? There's no loading system, is there? Oh no, you can select chapter. Okay. Oh, look at this. Okay, yeah, so there's 7 Solomon's notes, and there's obviously more than 7 here. So, okay, we should be fine then. Just wanted to make sure.
I actually knew the man who lived here. I believe his name was Solomon, though he insisted that the matter was irrelevant. During the few times we spoke, he seemed ungrateful to the point of mental masochism. He would consistently act as though you have somehow maliciously trapped him within your confines to limit what can be done with the outside. I, of course, know you better. You and I have a special relationship.
So is this entire thing a dream? Because it is called My Dream. So it looks like I'm back at the or a water treatment facility. And there's another weird symbol. So it points to the right, and then it does a little curly thing downwards. What the hell is it trying to tell me? Looks like it's raining. Well, this water is definitely safe to drink. Look at that environmental design. Look at the water flowing off of the edges of stuff. Very cool.
Before the fall, I had access to a monolithic complex of voices. My parents would simply drop me off with the instruction to learn. Vague, certainly, but the uncharted nature of the command provided me the freedom to let my interest plot the course. My travels picked up in speed as the voices became stronger, pulling me ashore to distant lands where discovery welcomed me with open arms.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what's happening here. Either he's regurgitating the story of Solomon as if it's his own, or he is Solomon, or the commentary I'm hearing is not actually of me? Because that's definitely talking about Solomon. That's the exact stuff that Solomon said, being dropped off with just the instruction to learn. God, I don't even think I could find it. That was in the first one, wasn't it? I don't even know where I would find it. But he definitely... Oh yeah, look. I can still recall the words of my parents as they left me at the library for countless hours. Go and learn, they said. Never was I given a direction. Never was I tested. No, I explored. So the voice I just heard, which I'm assuming is of me, and I'm assuming I am Jonah, is talking about Solomon. So what is going on? Between the dream world thing and this thing, it's too much to avoid. It's too much to be coincidence. Page 161. Council of Modernity. After the global incident in something, survivors divided themselves into 3 distinct groups based on belief structures. Post-fall, the ideological concerns of people still remained while structures failed to support the conflict. So what was a debate gave way to violence. The Council's primary role is to organize people into categories, thus allowing discussion between the larger parties to take place in a non-violent manner. Members of these categories are labeled dwellers. Anyone unaligned with the available overarching ideologies is actively called to adopt the title of Minotaur. See Minotaur. The Council was officially formed in something, and up to the writing of this encyclopedia to preserve voices. On request of the Council, there have been only 3 ideological groups. And up to the writing of this encyclopedia to preserve voices. What are voices? Capital V. And why are some parts just removed? After the global incident in... Is that a date? Or was it a date? Or is that a location? It's probably a date. But why would it be blacked out? Is that my mind just blacking it out? Because he doesn't want to face it? Or what? It's really weird. I mean, why would you remove that information? What's the point? Another bunch of arrows. I remember symbols like these in the very first chapter represented dwellings, right? So is this a directional thing telling me, like, from here, take a right, and then take another right to go to a dwelling? I don't know. Page 334. Guild of the Greater Eye. The Guild is one of the 3 ideological groups that spawn from the formation of the Council. See Council of Modernity. Their ideology consists of a basic theism. Post-fall, prior religions lost their structure, so a sort of individualism took place. This effectively shattered any theological differences. This faction agreed to unite under the assumption that a deity does exist, even if that deity's exact definition is various amongst the members. The one understanding that the members all share, and it's all blacked out. This ideological group's major goal is to rebuild a society that allows for freedom of religious expression. The primary method of achieving this, at the present, is through education. Under the regulations agreed upon by the Council at large, the Guild's methodology consists of presenting the possibility of a life outside the physical, and an entity not bound by physical laws. Well, as we know, they do more than just educate. They also mutilate and stuff into bags. I feel like I'm gonna see somebody, like, watching me when I stare out these places. It's creepy. It's eerie. Alright, so there's a door back there. Where does this go? There's a lot of pathways. There's a lot of pathways. Someone spent a lot of time here. Food, cans, cigarette. Page 810. Unknowing. The unknowing are one of the three ideological groups that spawned from the formation of the Council. Their ideology consists of a loose form of agnosticism. Finding a general consensus amidst this group has presented several structural problems, and their refusal to adopt any leader has resulted in an almost anarchic outlook. However, their methodology has almost no variation. The unknowing seek to rid any potential new society of the concept of objective truth. And in doing so, they aim to eliminate oppression entirely, leaving truth to individuals. Their goal is to create a society that adopts subjective truth. Okay, so upstairs and downstairs to a door. Let's see where upstairs goes. Exit. Okay, so that's probably where I'm supposed to go. Which means that's where I don't want to go. Yeah, people have spent a lot of time in here. Look at all these cans. Is that a drink called Lala? Soul? Viva? Oh, we're upstairs. Yeah, that's where that boat is that I saw. Look at all these cans. I don't think I ever want to see another trash bag ever again. That one probably contains actual trash, but maybe it doesn't. This place is really big. I'm gonna have a hard time keeping everything straight. Okay, this is... Oh, I was looking up here from through the bars. Now I'm on the other side.
It's true. My world is by no means ideal. And to say this is to admit to having an ideal at all, but that ideal is far beyond my reach. I dream of worlds where humanity ceases to fight over what they're certain of, but those worlds are not a reality. Truth must be compatible with itself.
Ooh. Hello. Okay, please tell me you were note number 5 so I didn't miss one. Or, number 4, I mean. Okay, you are. Excellent. Jonah. And this one, oh my god, is this larger than the first one? I think this actually might be larger than the first one. Oh dear god, it is. Rest in peace, my voice. Let's save that for later. Page 679. Order of the Cosmos. The Order is one of the 3 ideological groups that spawned from the formation of the Council. Their ideology consists of a staunch atheism. Members were initially concerned that survivors would rebuild a society with what they called the mistakes of the past. With these structures gone, post-fall, they saw a danger in regressing to a barbaric religious state where society suppresses unbelievers. However, as of writing this encyclopedia, the Order has become more generally concerned with presenting atheism as the only sensible possibility. Their methodology for achieving this goal is based primarily on discussion. Their belief is that progress can only be made through discussion, and that fact will win out over falsehood, given an honest, dialectic approach. Well, like the other groups, that sounds like a reasonable methodology, but in practice it probably ends up being more about killing people. Yeah, we're gonna just convert people over to our cause by talking to them calmly, and then when they don't listen, we're just gonna chop them up and put them into trash bags, thereby purifying the earth. Ah. Progress. That rain just looks really, really good. Oh, wait a minute. When the machine... when the vending machine said out of order, I thought that meant it was out of order. But there's actually a kind of drink called out of order? What, is it for rebellious young teens? Hello? Wouldn't it be creepy as hell if I just saw, like, the outline of a person in shadow go across there? Ugh. No, there's nothing there. Wait, where did I come from? I came from there. I went there. Okay. Another pathway. Dear Solomon, I'm not sure if you're going to receive this, but I hope it gets to you somehow. I miss you. Why did you leave? I don't understand. I know you went north, but I wish you would have told me why. It was never Abraham. I never loved him. I love you, Solomon, and I don't know if it's my fault or yours that we never were together. I feel like I made a lot of mistakes. I should have told you how I felt, but it's just so hard to know that sometimes I didn't know if any of it was real, you know? Maybe us being together was just a dream. Anyway, Abraham is gone now, and I'm coming to find you. I'm just near the water treatment facility, and I know the sorts of places you love to make your home. Look for me in the area. I want to see you again. With love, Belle. She did come to look for him. She wasn't the one that was all, like, tied up and gutted. By the guild, right? Was that her? That was a woman. I don't know. I don't think so. God, I hope she's still alive. Yeah, I'm like 99% certain that I am Solomon. I keep trying those levers, but they never work. Okay, where the hell am I now? I don't like that door. That door looks final. Even though it doesn't say exit. It's too big. I don't trust it. Wait. Isn't that door where I came in from? Oh, I can't even use it. I think the door is where I came in from. Okay, so what's left? I still have the note to read. Been here. I think I just need to go downstairs to that door. Yeah, been there. That's a dead end. That's where I got the note. Did I go that way? No, I didn't go that way. Or is this where the exit was? No, it's not.
Yes, my dear Solomon, a marginal effect. One small step towards the unattainable, indeed.
Page 325. Green pipes. Installed in something, they provide clean water to the exterior of the old city. Natural water in and around something island historically had problems with deposits of something, making it extremely dangerous to consume. See unclean water or void. Notable documented effects of the unclean water include hallucination, severe migraines, and thoughts of suicide. The extreme mental effects of the unclean water makes filtration and treatment a necessity. While numerous treatment facilities exist around the outer ring of the island, all filtered water feeds back into the inland before being filtered again and fed to the exterior, effectively making the old city the source of the clean water. The entire process is automated with an estimated lifespan of around something years. After global incident in something, the council split the flow from the interior into 3 groups. The first group serves the guild, second serves the unknowing, and the third serves the order. Wait. It serves the 3 groups, but it doesn't serve people that don't subscribe to any of the groups. So that doesn't help the Minotaurs at all. They're just left high and dry. That's weird. You have to subscribe to a group and pick up your guns, metaphorically or literally, and march into battle if you want water. Otherwise, you're screwed. Well, sounds about right. You're either with us or against us. That sort of mentality. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Well, I'm certainly seeing hallucinations, so I guess I've probably drinking some of the unclean water. Maybe. Could just be that from being isolated, it's just driven me a bit crazy. Looks like a maze or something, but also kind of looks like a brain. Moths. I see you. Okay, now I think there's only one place left to go. That is, aside from the exit. And it's probably the thing that's going to make me see things that I don't want to see. Whoa, there was something behind the bars. There was something behind the bars, but I didn't look fast enough, damn it. What was it? One giant leap for a man, one small step for mankind. Okay, now I'm back to the beginning, so yeah, now I'm probably going to see things as they actually are. So let's go back through again. Let me see if the notes have now... No, oh god. Let's see if the notes have not been redacted, and yep.
But if he could only have seen your qualities, your utilitarian and defensive necessity.
The kind of ironic thing is who can say why he killed himself? Is it just because of the general horribleness of even bothering to live? Or was it because of the unclean water, driving him to suicidal thoughts and hallucinations? Okay, that was never censored in any way, so that hasn't changed. There's probably nothing different down here.
Naturally, I have my moments where I wish I could sail, but these are nothing but unchecked emotional discharges amidst an otherwise passably clear and somewhat intact realism. Solomon never could stop the dreaming. His unrestrained imagination grew until the contrast was too much, and he was forced to take the honorable route, like so many of the others who litter the walls of your interior.
So he just said that Solomon... Basically, didn't he just say, or at least imply, that Solomon killed himself? But I'm pretty sure he is Solomon. Okay, this note over here had a big redacted thing, so let's see if it's still there.
The dreams he created were his escape. I often feel as though they can only function as such. They have a marginal effect, yes, but the required time for any real impact is far too great. Dreams that contribute are a grain of sand on a shoreline far away from here, and Tarshish feels much closer.
Okay, I'm gonna drop down. Yeah, so it looks like the redactions are still there. So they were not imagined. Once again, these symbols are now covered in blood and filled in, whereas they weren't before. I don't know if there's any more bodies. Yep, and this pathway's now gone. So it was never actually there in the first place, I guess. Okay, I think it's time to go. Alright, let's go find the exit. Of course, I still have Solomon's note to read. But let's get to the exit first. Is this a dead end? Oh crap, it is. Okay. This is going to absolutely ruin my voice. Because this is longer than the first note. This is significantly longer than the first note. Wait a minute. Now it looks like it's the same size. That can't be right. There we go. Yeah, it's significantly longer than the first note, and the first note took me a little bit more than 30 minutes. Oh god. Okay, well, I'm going to power on through. Jonah. Note 7, 30th of January. I can't say that isolation is without its benefits. Even in times such as now, where the transition makes the negative aspects painfully apparent, I can and should note that this natural pessimism is simply a product of the turmoil afforded by transition in general. Pessimism often functions this way. Chaos or turmoil have the odd ability to color things colorless, and even the most black reality is better than a gray one. The vagueness of it, though. I can do nothing but apologize for my silly semantics. My only point is that the transition between being slightly less alone to the normalcy of total isolation is where blind negativity is in full force, and the positive nature of loneliness is difficult to see when your entire universe crumbles in light of your own recent and unfortunate experience. After the shades are lifted and we see the universe in all of its true scale, our own experience is appropriately marginalized. I do recognize it, the interim of transition, as a sort of selfish thing, much like you are now, and I'm sure my writing has been summarily dismissed as angsty gibberish, the kind of hollow passion you often see around people transitioning into adulthood, at that moment where children wake to the sad truth that everything is not only terrible, but much worse. It is all pointless. I can't really blame you, though I'm not sure why you have kept reading to this point. You should see by now that there really is nothing to be gained from this. Anyway, as I was saying, the transition is to blame for the pessimism. The benefits are still present, however, and they are vast. Macro perspectives tend to be accurate by nature of being distant, and isolation provides a wellspring of distance. After all, how can one be nearsighted when there is nothing near to see? Bias always exists, of course, but when one is alone, the bias only presents a conflict of interpretation, not of scope. That is to say, the bias of an isolated individual is an internal issue that follows the same rules of insecurity and selfishness that a more involved or social bias does without the lack of context created by blinders. Looking at the world through a telescope allows one to see all, and consequently interpret the total object of the findings. Existing in said world can cause problems of perspective that a detached individual rarely experiences. Of course, it is also possible, likely, yes, that this position has been assumed by yours truly for the sake of justifying my own misanthropy. But as you well know, I've never been one for baseless psychoanalysis. Then again, that might simply be because I'm wholly terrible at it. Look at me. I'm psychoanalyzing my own failure to psychoanalyze. This is what people like you do to me. You and your ceaseless assumptions of my inner struggles. warping every position I could ever take that happens to not agree with your own. Could it be possible, perhaps even probable, that you are wrong about something? Anything? Yes, reader. I am now sure that this is the chief benefit of isolation, never speaking to anyone like you. Still, here you are, haunting my thoughts with your idiocy. If only I wasn't so similarly stupid, then we wouldn't have to continue playing this game. We do make a pathetic pair, don't we? Oh, but we aren't the only ones, you know. He was a curious man. Completely insane, granted, but curious in a charming sort of way. I met him yesterday near the Northwestern Water Treatment Facility. Jonah, he called himself. It's a quaint title for an enigmatic man. I was making my way back towards the great retaining walls from the western beaches, when the road widened to what was once called a highway. I could see him through the fog, but what terrified me was that I could hear him as well. Do you know the difference between terror and horror? Horror is a response to realized dread, but terror is something else entirely. Terror is an unknown chasm between safety and danger that simultaneously causes us to hide away while driving curiosity. We want to know the nature of the danger, even if we aren't sure that it exists. When I heard him speaking, my immediate reaction was to assume he was calling to me, but that assumption faded as I paid attention to his tone. It seemed as though he were conversing with someone, which caused me to assume that he was not alone. You should know by now that I am a coward, so it should be no surprise that I jumped to and waited behind a large stone just to the side of the road before he could see me. As he got closer, I could see that there was no one else. In my confusion and curiosity, I seemed to have presented just enough of my head for him to see that I was present. He wasn't startled by me. Rather, he just said a bizarre string of words. "Good morn, fellow sailor." Yes, at that moment, I understood. He was not talking to anyone in particular. He's simply insane. I physically transitioned from cowardice to caution, then slowly approached. He had this absurd smile on his face, yet his eyes were static and his brow was relaxed. I couldn't decide if the expression was disingenuous or simply indicative of a complete mental emptiness. Regardless, I felt it at least safe enough to mutter my greeting. "Hello?" Not quite as fancy as his, but at least it was grounded in reality. Anyway, he pointed west in the direction of the cliffs, to a small outcropping amidst the pines. I could see a large bench with a wooden roof looking out at the sea. The sun was just setting, almost spotlighting the area. "Care for a chat? You look tired," he said. "Almost as tired as I am. And what better way to rest a bit than to watch the sun set over Sheol? Let loose your anchor for a while. It's been ages since I've spoken to anyone new." I paused for a moment to consider the danger of the situation, but then I noticed his lack of weaponry, and how he could have attacked me long before. Additionally, and I won't lie, I was curious. The way he spoke was bizarre in an almost pretentious way, but it was interesting. So, I agreed. We sat on either end, and I wanted to keep my distance, so there was enough space between us for 2 other people to join. At first I was so tense that my limbs became stiff. My muscles all locked me in place as I stared at his face. It sounds awkward, and it was, but he never once looked over at me. He just stared off into the sea. I started. "Your name?" "Jonah," he replied. "And yours?" "Irrelevant." In hindsight, that likely came off as pointlessly aggressive, but he didn't seem to mind. He just kept looking out at the sea. The slight smile on his face made me dislike him, however, and I feel as though, even in his insanity, he was assuming some sort of superiority. I can't really explain why I thought this, but there it is. And granted, given my obviously pathetic nature, he probably wouldn't be wrong. But I expect at least a bit of humility from people who absolutely don't know me. After breathing in the ocean air and letting it loose, he said, "Do you trust him?" "Do I trust who?" "Leviathan." I paused. "I don't know what that means," I replied. Still, he continued, "Do you trust him to show you what's real?" "What on earth are you talking about?" At this point I was tired, frustrated, and concerned that this obviously insane person might turn dangerous, so I opted to leave. I stood up and said, "You're insane." "That's possible, but I'm not the only one who dreams. You dream as well, yes?" I sat back down. "Listen, Jonah," I protested. "You're going to have to explain or give some kind of context. You can't expect me to carry on a conversation with you if you're unwilling to tell me what we're talking about." "How can I be expected to explain my friend to you if you won't even give me your name?" "Fair enough. My name is Solomon. Now, who is this Leviathan, and why should I know him?" "Everyone knows Leviathan." "I beg to differ," I cut him off. "Everyone knows Leviathan. You just don't know his nature. He's around us right now." With the now palpable lack of sanity oozing like the plague from this person, I asked, "So Leviathan is your god, then?" No, Leviathan isn't a god. He's a friend." "I don't know about any sort of god, but Leviathan has kept me safe for decades, and it's worth knowing who is protecting you." "How is this Leviathan person protecting you?" I asked. "Well, you see, I have some problems." "Correct. I have some problems when it comes to knowing what's real." "Shocking!" "A lot of things are hidden from me, things that I should not see, and Leviathan, when necessary, unveils them for me. They're the sort of things that make the world seem less than ideal." I started, "So, what you're telling me is that you're so insane that your mind blocks out negative things, and this Leviathan, who isn't real by the way, shows you what's real?" "That's quite the story." "Remember when I asked you if you dream?" "Yes." "Well," he asked, "how do you know that the dreams aren't real?" "I know they're just dreams because I wake up to reality. People go to sleep, they dream, then they wake up. How do you not understand this?" "Yes, see, that's just the point," he said. "I don't wake up. Ever." "What do you mean?" "When I dream, the transition between reality and the dream world is difficult to pin down. Sailing can often be challenging to describe. Once you cast off, determining what's land and what's void becomes tricky." After he said the word void, I froze for a moment. I have talked about void before, but I imagine his version is different. Anyway, I quickly regained composure and said, "All right, so basically you're hallucinating? Search your companion for something called schizophrenia." "Perhaps. But the real trouble is in deciding which reality is better. Sometimes I feel as though I want to escape to my dreams, to sail to Tarshish. Leviathan's job is to bring me back to the real world," he explained. "It's not a pleasant thing, waking up. But for some reason, Leviathan has convinced me that it is necessary." "Can I meet this Leviathan?" "You're in him." "What?" "You are inside of Leviathan. This isn't particularly difficult to understand." I responded angrily. "Yes, the problem isn't that it's difficult to understand. The problem is that what you're saying is absolutely insane. I understand what it means to be inside of a thing, and I understand that you have concocted some imaginary character for what is a normal function of the mind. Understanding isn't the issue anymore. What you're saying is nonsensical." "While my problem may prevent me from being able to take your word on the matter, I can say that you have a similar problem, even if you don't know it. Let me ask you, Can you describe your dreams to me? That really is none of your business, I said. Of course, but seeing as this is a big island, we're relatively small entities on it, and there aren't exactly a lot of people to spread things anymore. Do you really have any reason to keep that information private? By then, I decided that arguing his sanity was fruitless, so the best course of action was to humor him, if only for the sake of curiosity. I replied, "That's a fair point. I guess I don't." "Then I guess you won't mind if I take a stroll through your dreams with you?" An awkward sentiment, but I can move past it. The only 2 dreams I can remember from recently are about a woman named Belle. Love interest? Before the second dream, no. After the second dream, I'm not sure. Explain them to me, he demanded. I then proceeded to unfold the dreams that I have already unfolded to you, reader. I explained the horror of the first dream, and the melancholy of the recent one. He listened intently with every measure of interest that I had for his rambling. He never once looked over at me, and he kept tilting his head down to look at the earth. Why did he do that, I wonder? I would say something, some minor detail in the dreams, and he would stare at the dirt with this odd blank expression. Anyway, at the end of it, he did not hesitate to ask a question. "Which do you prefer?" Confused, I replied, "Are you asking which dream of the 2 I would rather have had, or which of them I remember more fondly?" "Both." Honestly, the question took me completely off guard. I'd never thought of my unfortunate dreams in terms of preference. I considered the question for entire minutes, actually. And I was surprised to see that he simply sat in silence, waiting for me to answer. I think he may have had some kind of social anxiety preventing him from looking me in the eye. Anyway, I gave him my conclusion. "I think I prefer the first dream. The nightmare." "Why is that?" "Well, after I woke from that dream, reality was a relief. While experiencing and remembering the dream was, and is, a terrible thing, I am actively experiencing the better version of reality. The other dream, the good dream, was one where waking caused tears. It's a place that I don't want to think about, because it doesn't exist. And because it doesn't exist, it is a deeply saddening realization that I exist in reality. I would rather have a mundane dream, but if I must fall on an extreme, I would rather it be worse than the real world, so as to contrast it," I explained. "So," he asked, "dreaming of you and Belle together is a terrible thing, yes?" "In a sense, yes. It's not even the real Belle. It's just a projection. The real Belle and I could never be together, and I doubt she ever had even the slightest interest in me," I explained. "Besides, I didn't even know I had an interest in her until the dream happened." "If I had asked you before the dream had happened if you had an interest in Belle, what would you have said?" "No." "I guess your interest isn't real then, and you're having some trouble seeing what is and what isn't reality." It was a clever trick, but I wasn't particularly impressed. I responded, "Is your point only that my dreams affect my reality? I could have told you that. However, unlike you, I know the distinction. I know that my interest in Belle is illusory, just as I know the effects of my nightmare are also based on something entirely illusory. My inability to stop myself from responding to said effects does not make me any less aware of what reality actually is." "What were the effects of your nightmare?" "It is the reason I'm moving north. It's the reason I left her in the first place, and it's the reason I'm talking to you now. I'm moving north because the nightmare highlighted something in reality that was a problem, and the best solution was to distance myself from her entirely, so as to stop causing said problem. I know that the dream itself wasn't real, and I know that I never had anywhere near as negative an effect on her. But that's not the point. The point is that the nightmare brought elements of reality forward, which prompted the need for change." I would agree with you that the effects are based on something illusory. My only additional point is that everything else is illusory as well, he said. Ah, I sneered. Nihilism. Too stupid to be anything but trite and just childish enough to be pathetic. The thing is, Solomon, from what you've described, you have no real basis for assuming Belle never had an interest in you other than her never expressing one. In assuming she has no interest in you, you're doing exactly what you did in your dream. You're projecting. The reality of your dream and the reality of what you call reality are simply two illusory worlds that you are using in an internal fight, hoping that the truth will win out. You are biased towards the latter world, however, and thus the former world will never come to fruition. I retorted, You're done talking about Leviathan, sailing in void then, yes? Now we're in the realm of baseless psychoanalysis? Or should I put my philosophy cap on and pretend I'm talking to Nietzsche? You do know an awful lot about the old world. Where did you learn of nihilism and Nietzsche? He asked. Do you also know void? I learned through reading. Reading is useful. You should try it. Also, I know of something that I call void, but I'm not sure if what you call void is the same. Did you have any schooling as a child? Before the fall? No, actually. My parents decided to let libraries fill the role of teachers, I replied. Even though my tone was making my aggravation as obvious as possible, he didn't seem deterred. For the first time in the conversation, he turned to look at me. His jaw dropped slightly, and I saw the first genuine emotion on his face. Surprise. After a pause, he turned to the sun and started again. Did you hear that, Leviathan? He experienced didactic emptiness as well. I couldn't take it any longer. I hated that he was moving towards feeling of kinship with me. Me and the insane person, yes. My fists were now petrified, and I raised my voice enough to make my frustrations known to his precious fantasy. There is no Leviathan! After 5 seconds, he said, How do you know? I'm not going to play this ridiculous game with... Humor me, please, he said in the only instance of actual severity I've ever heard from him. I know Leviathan isn't real because no one else has ever seen or heard of this entity, an entity whose belly we are supposedly inside of, and to be inside of said entity is physically impossible. That's simply not how the universe works. And most importantly, you're absolutely out of your mind, so your word on the matter is irrelevant, I replied. What if Leviathan has simply not revealed himself to you? What if all of the things you just described are actually under his control? And what if I'm not as insane as you think? What if everything you think you know is wrong? This is ridiculous, I started. The only things that exist are things based on what I can sense. I can see the world, I can touch the world, and I can sense the world in all of the ways that make my certainty valid. It's the sort of certainties that, when lost, make people like you insane. From my senses, I can determine a great many things. Before the fall, we had fields of science and knowledge that make this whole debate pointless and childish. He waited. Then he said, Yes, Leviathan does make it difficult to see past your own perspective. He's very good at that. It's funny how he can trick us into claiming a truth that makes other claims moot, even without any basis. Are you saying that my senses aren't any basis for reality? Are you more insane than I previously thought? Did we not just dismiss nihilism? If my senses are not a basis for reality, are we to progress further? Is the only true basis for certainty that I exist? Do you? Again, this is ridiculous, he asked. Can you give me an argument for why you exist? Well, you had access to libraries, just as I did. So you should be able to tell me. Cogito ergo sum, yes? The problem with drawing existence from the existence of thought is that you're assuming the existence of thought, he explained. You keep making this even more preposterous. You're escalating into absolutely absurd levels of pseudo-philosophy. Yet, he continued. Consider what line of thought you would actually have to entertain to agree with Descartes. I think, therefore I am, assumes that you think, which you may not agree with. But if you really think about it, you'll determine that you don't know if you're thinking, even if you can't think of a reality in which you are not thinking. It's circular. To assume you think is to assume existence, and to assume existence is to assume you think. You think because you exist because you think. I'm not agreeing with any of this because it's absurd, childish, and stupid. But if you're right, then what? Am I to conclude that nothing exists? Again, how is this not nihilism? No, my dear Solomon. Nihilism is simply one step removed from void, and that is a place that exists without certainty. I am not yet certain that there is no certainty, he replied. Do you not see the problem with being certain that you are not certain? Is that not a logical fallacy of some sort? It is, actually, but I'm simply not sure how to work it out yet. At the present, I cannot justify certainty in any form, and Leviathan is protecting me just enough from void to prevent drowning. I dare not lose certainty entirely until I have something to replace it with. And yes, to your earlier statement, this is absolutely childish. That's precisely what makes it work. Children have a tendency to ask why over and over until the nearest adult screams, "Because I said so!" I thought about it for a bit, and, as bizarre as it sounds, I believe I started to understand what he was saying. It's still absurd, of course, but it stuck with me for some reason. I said, "If I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that you cannot find an answer to end all questions, and thus there's nothing to regress to? We can simply keep asking questions? In other words, the lack of dreams is a dream itself, then?" Yes. You see, I may be insane, but in a way, you all have the same basic problem I do. Reality, like sanity, is a slippery thing. In a brief moment of arrogance, I assumed that I could immediately solve the issue. I said, "Should we not simply adopt the position of the unknowing, then? If certainty is moot and truth is subjective, do we not all have our own truth? Perhaps your Leviathan is just as true as my lack of one. The trouble with this is that truth must be compatible with itself. Or, at least, I assume as much. I could be wrong, I guess, but Leviathan keeps bringing me back to that assumption. He keeps bringing me back to the assumption that truth has some value as a singular object," he countered. I suppose I agree with that. Anyway, as interesting and frustrating as this discussion has been, I dare say that I don't see the point. At this point, I should note that my frustrations were subsiding. The sun was then almost escaping us, and the slight breeze was doing its best to bring the sea upwards in the form of mist and scent. It was much like being a child smelling the food from the kitchen as your mother prepared it for you. The whole scene, the contrast between the fire of the sun and the marine depths of the east with a sea of magenta between them, was so staggering that it resulted in me forgetting that I was waiting for a response. We both just sat there. He broke the silence. "It is tempting, isn't it?" "What?" "Void." There I sat with the only person in the world to have shared void with me. An insane man and his imaginary friend from the deep. It's not exactly the sharing I'd hoped for. I answered his rhetorical question with a correspondingly serious one. "Have you ever given in completely?" Is where Leviathan found me. Yes, I did expect as much. Void can have this effect on the mind. He continued. I've never fully recovered, of course. I asked, "Did you drink the unclean water?" "Yes." We paused for a moment. "Anyway, you didn't answer my question," I said. "I asked you what the point of this discussion is." He explained, certainty can cause a great deal of problems. It's what causes the dwellers to act as they do. It's what causes you to assume Bell had never had any feelings for you. And it's what causes you to dismiss me entirely because of my admittedly questionable sanity. It acts as a cage. I still think you're insane. But again, if you are correct, what is there to do? How does this help us? I asked. I'm not sure yet. I have to find something to replace certainty with. If I can't, then all that's left is void. There was nowhere now but Leviathan. If these dreams are useful, how are we supposed to present them? Like I said, I'm not sure. I exist as a parasite in his intestines, but there is an answer somewhere. Perhaps the old city has it. I'd honestly never understood the obsession with the inland, the old city. Regardless, I felt as though there was no other interesting place for this conversation to go, and night was upon us. It was time to go. Well, Jonah, this has been a fascinating discussion, I will say, even if it was frustrating at the start. It's been refreshing to talk to someone new in the midst of almost no one at all. Good luck on all of your endeavors. He said as I stood up, yes, it has been revealing. But Solomon, you should trust your dreams. Belle might not be who you assume she is. We both share an advantage in our distance from the others. We can see the scale of things. And you best let your dreams work for the better. One giant leap, Solomon. Back to insanity, yes. I responded. I very much doubt that. I'm off to find happiness and contentment in the north, and I won't turn back because of a dream. Anyway, goodbye, Jonah. Fair winds on your voyage, he said. I turned and I left him there, sat on his bench with his imaginary character and his pondering. An odd fellow, pretentious, arrogant, and insane, but perhaps genuine. If only his words meant a thing in the world. That is a lot to take in. There's quite a few things I want to go back and look at and talk about, so hold on, I'm going to do some rereading of a couple parts. Okay, after thinking about this for a bit more, there's a couple things that stand out to me. So one of them is this. It's when Jonah is talking to Solomon, and he says, "Did you have any schooling as a child before the fall?" Then Solomon says, "No, actually, my parents decided to let libraries fill the role of teachers." Okay, so that fits what we know about Solomon, because he's mentioned before in his previous notes about that. About how his parents just let him loose in a library and just said, "Go and learn." However, here's the interesting part. Let's see. For the first time in the conversation, he turned to look at me. His jaw dropped slightly, and I saw the first genuine emotion on his face. Surprise. And that's what he says right after he just mentions that his parents just left him at libraries to study. And that was the first part in this entire lengthy conversation where he turned to look at him. And he was surprised. That definitely means something. That absolutely means something. See, I'm already starting to think that maybe Solomon and Jonah are the same person. So if Jonah turned to look at Solomon when he said that, maybe he was realizing that he's talking to himself. Because he goes on to tell Solomon, basically prove that you exist. And then Solomon also mentions, this guy Jonah is crazy, look up schizophrenia in your companion, the dictionary or whatever the companion was. I think it was a dictionary. So I think they might be the same person. And perhaps Jonah just interprets his sane self as imaginary. as irrelevant, which I guess would be pretty ironic, wouldn't it? Imagining the sane version of yourself as irrelevant, literally, that's his name. I think that might be what's going on. And certainly the things that Jonah, or whoever he is, whoever I am, certainly the things he has been saying to himself are very reminiscent of what I've read in Solomon's notes. The stuff about the world of dreams, the mirrors of the dreams, dream world, whatever he referred to it as. And then there's some other commonalities. There's also this thing. One giant leap, Solomon. And what did that thing say that I just saw a little bit ago where I was looking at the boat and there were the two hands reaching out? It said something that was kind of like the opposite of that. One small leap for man or something. I don't remember the exact quote, but yeah. So the only two things I can think of is that either Jonah and Solomon are the same people, or Jonah has read this stuff before and he's just, like, mumbling to himself and talking almost as if he's, like, mixing up Solomon's life and his life from what he's read. But I think they're the same person. I think they are.
Perhaps his dreams were a ladder leading to uselessness. Perhaps my dreams are the same.
Page 598. Minotaur. The Minotaurs were elected as moderators in the discussions between the three ideological groups of the Council. Their usefulness is directly related to their ability to maintain fairness. Instrumental in preventing violent outbreaks and infighting, the Minotaurs do not align with any particular ideology. They act as free agents in a discussion between three established factions. A major source of support for the Minotaurs is another party named in the old city, which is now quarantined because of... Whoa. A major source of support for the Minotaurs is another party named I can only imagine that probably says Leviathan. There's a fourth party. Or would that be a fifth party? I guess it'd be a fifth party, wouldn't it? Are the Minotaurs considered a party? Kinda? Not really sure. But anyway, there's what? There's the Guild, the Order, and what's the other one? The Unknowing? The Unknow... something like that? And then the Minotaurs, I'm not sure if they can be considered an order. Or a party. But then there's a party of Leviathans that support the Minotaurs. Something about the old city which is now quarantined because of something. And why is it quarantined? Is it because of the bad water? Because it sounds like the Leviathans are actually inside of the old city. So perhaps that's why he's going there? Because the Leviathans support the Minotaurs and he is a Minotaur? So this figurative beast that I'm inside the belly of is perhaps a party. What does that mean? I don't really know. Also, isn't this the typewriter that Solomon noted he was lugging around with him? Well, I mean, I suppose it could be a different typewriter. Yeah, that was the quote. One small step for a man. Another useless corpse for mankind. One small step for a man, another useless corpse for mankind. See, and that seems related to what I just read. Here, at the very end. One giant leap, Solomon. One giant leap. One small step for a man. One giant leap for mankind? Is that what he's trying to say?
How much do you know of the old world? Did you even exist? Were you thrown overboard when your fall occurred, floundering in a new and terrifying negativity? My transition was not a comfortable one, so in this we can feel a measure of companionship.
It seems he's questioning his existence too. Did you even exist? Indeed. Okay, well, before I continue, because this episode is already like an hour and a half long, I think I better end it. This game is just becoming more and more fascinating. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed so far, and I'll be back soon.